Dr. John Irvine, welcome to Business Insider.
My privilege, thanks very much.
Thank you for your time. And Milestone Villanova, as we've mentioned, we are nomads here. An extraordinary, I can't resist talking about you travelling in the back of the bus as kids and banging your head on the roof. Why? Is that background for becoming a psychologist, do you think?
No, banging of the head, not quite, but my mum was a teacher, and as it turns out, my three brothers and I, we all became teachers, and my grandmother and great-grandmother, and so on, a long line of educators. But we were very poor, and my great-aunts had a house in Pearl Beach, and we could only afford
and
holiday there. That was 1926.
The first house on Pearl Beach.
The first house on Pearl Beach. Right. And so when we came for holidays, we'd come there, and the only way to come was got off the train at Woy Woy, and it was the old box carriages there. They had those in those days, and then we'd get on the bus, and it would rattle its way all dirt roads and over big potholes. So my brothers and I would sit in the back, and so we could try and hit our head on the roof. It had nothing to do with me having brain damage and
well,
becoming a psychologist.
The irony is you now look after people's brains. I think that's nice.
Well, actually, while you mention that, I think my brother does more of that side. I tend to focus more on the behavioural aspects, child management. My brother specialised in neuropsychology, so he's still doing assessments of people who might have up for dementia or some sort of inability neurologically, and so that's become his specialisation. But we started out the clinic just more in 1980, 81.
And I should just point, sorry, we haven't introduced the founder of the Reed Clinic, which has celebrated 30 years with your brother. So
yeah, well, that's right. I was an academic. I came back in 1980 from Queensland, where I'd set up all the early childhood programs in southwest Queensland. My mum wasn't 100%. She had a heart condition, and I wanted the kids to be part of mum's life. And so we couldn't afford Sydney at that stage, coming from Brisbane, from Toowoomba prices. And so I knew we'd love Pearl Beach, because I love Pearl Beach. I knew my wife would be happy there, and and a family is very important to me, as you'd expect. And bringing up a family in circumstances where I felt was a good place to bring up family, surrounded by natural bush and bushland and so on. It had many drawbacks according to the kids, because no friends lived there, but we had to go over the hill for everything. But that's what, when I came back, and then I had to commute every day to do my academic job, and it was a pretty responsible job as a dean and all that, so I wanted to build up the clinic, and so it was Saturday morning clinic, and in combination with a toy shop. I did my PhD in children's play, and so we set up a toy shop in East Gosford, and Saturday morning we'd run the clinic and the toy shop. And finding the clinic was much more rewarding, both for myself and financially, than the toy shop, which was causing great heartaches, because we had the big businesses near us, I don't know if I can mention names, but the Toys R Us and all that. Yeah. And of course they just swamped us. They came in, the big boys came in at prices they could buy for prices we could never get near. So the clinic gradually took hold, particularly with people, more professionals, who said, we haven't had anything like that here to actually work specifically with kids. So we started to do assessments of children, and then as it got bigger, Warwick did the assessments and I did the behavioural management, and then we outgrew that when we went to West Gosford, and from West Gosford to Baker Street, and Baker Street into where we are now. We've got 3 premises at the moment, which I have to say, whether it's part of your brief or not, my business model was virtually nil. It grew. And it
Coming out of academia, yes. Absolutely. And if anything, they teach you to avoid commercial practice.
It's interesting you say that. I grew up in a conservative family, and business was always seen as bad. We were always public servants, we all were. And it was seen as anything commercial like that, was seen as being selfish, and so I was the first in the whole family to break out of that mould. And so having no business acumen or background, relying entirely on the fact people said we're offering something useful and we want to get more of it. So we had to spend more days in the clinic, and then my brother gave up his school counselling job to join me in that, and I gave away the academic job in 1988, and then to just focus entirely on the clinic. But you're right, it is 30 years of growing like Topsy. So if you were looking for this video to get an ideal business model, I tried to analyse it since you asked me. I think the passion that we had was one, probably the expertise is another, but just our, we were determined to, we came from a good family, we believed in working with parents and so on, and not judging parents because they had problems, but rather, I'm a parent, we had a child who had died in infancy, and I think that propelled me into saying I don't want families to go through what I've been through. So we grew like Topsy without a business model. We got a lady who came in and helped us to manage it, and it became too big for her as well. But so it was really the model I'd never want anyone to copy.
You have the model. You have the model. And we've talked to a couple of people today that have reinforced the fact that, Dr. John, you had the model, and it is based on listening to people's needs. And if that is your job, listening, but people can listen and then ignore it. You listened and actually built the business around it. So no, sir, you have the model, just almost innately.
Yeah, it's nice of you to say that, but it certainly caused us a lot of stress and strain of dealing with the complexity of personalities. As you grow, you have to get others in, and we weren't strong in terms of writing out our objectives and outcomes and the strategic plan, and all of which we're doing more of now because we're a complex organisation, and my daughter and a couple of others in there who are taking over the management of the place. And of course their standards and expectations walking into a business that is quite that's quite A, well respected, and B, complex. They had to have many more objective criteria and clear goals and clear planning and all the things which Warwick and I never really did, but we know we've given them a good start, and it's so, honestly, I get quite a kick out of hearing you say that, because we've always felt we were failures as businessmen because it became complex and we couldn't manage it. But in a sense, that was just stage one, I suppose.
And again, I'd go back, and this isn't to give you a warm feeling, but recognising, not enough of us recognise what our strengths are, and not enough of us then call in people who can complement what we do.
Yes.
It takes brave people, I think, to move to that next step. So, no, that's enough praise now. We won't push it any further. And strangely enough, I'm sure my wife listens to some of your advice to children and applies most of that to me. So it's multi-level, I'm sure. So in that business planning, because you are at a different stage and you've got a team that are working on those objectives.
Yeah, we've got a very good team.
Yeah. Do they do that on an annual basis now? And do you get involved with that? Do they let you play in that area, or they say, no, Dad, leave it alone, we'll look after it?
Yeah, they're very respectful of me as the founding father and whatever of it, and at no stage do I feel that they're trying to shuffle me out.
Yes.
I think they still think the name is important, and that what I've got to contribute is important, and I'll come to that where it might grow to. But I'm still the chairman of the board, and but the executive. They meet weekly, and I'm there for the bi-monthly meetings, and I'm very happy with how it's going. But they've treated me with respect, and I suppose you've got this from nearly every businessman you speak to, or business people, is that getting the right people in the right jobs. And fortunately, we've got some key players now. Not only my daughter and her two offsiders, which the triumvirate are really the executive now, but our administrative, they're so good. And but to get there, it was it was not an easy time. The succession planning and all that, the way it should be done, was not done. So it went through a lot of hard yards, if I might mention it. One of the things, because we like to think collectively that everybody there loves kids as much as we do. They're there because they want to be and they respect our values and so on. But then that doesn't always work. That's a bit idealistic. We probably were idealistic. We probably wouldn't have started the business if we weren't. But in so doing, we wanted to get shareholders, so we all have a collective involvement. Now, I wasn't so keen on that model as my brother, but he and the lady administering the company thought it was good. I had a lot of media to do, and I was, as you know, and I was off doing my media work outside of the clinic. But they said shareholders the way to go. Well, that I needn't go too long in the angst that caused, because everyone has different expectations out of their shareholders.
Is it still in place, or
we're gradually pulling back from that? We've bought back the shares and selling them off, and without doubt, it's been the single biggest, whether you call it a mistake or growing point. It has certainly caused my brother and I enormous stress, to the point where it affected his health particularly, because we were working on our idealistic model that people would understand. But then this one sort of said, I think we should do it. I think I want out now. I think I want to, and well, you have to pay me X extra. And hang on, you're part of the Irvine team.
This is
we
the
don't
family,
do that.
isn't it?
It's a family thing. And so that's been a very big
tough learning, I think, isn't it?
Tough learning, it has been.
And I think as business people, we often underrate the personal dynamics in this, because that family structure is very real and won't. And it's easy in hindsight now. You're saying, we probably shouldn't have done it, or we would have done it differently. Absolutely, but again, a great catch cry in business these days is you fail quickly. You identify that there's an error, and correct. So
and also, if we hadn't gone to that model, we wouldn't have got the triumvirate, as I call them, my daughter, coming in, because there was no one for the succession plan. It was a gap there, and yet we knew we had to pull back. So in a way, it's certainly been one of the most expensive learning lessons, both financially, physically, emotionally, from going from a family thing that was working so well on love, goodwill, but as you know, and every other businessman listening to this, well, no, you cannot grow a business just like that. And
let's talk about some of that growth now, because you've got 22 practitioners?
Yeah, something like that now, and temporarily we're in 3 buildings. One's our pain clinic in Man Street, and then we've got 2 buildings in Hill Street, and the Man Street one for more for adults, so that they don't have to put up with kids' noises.
Often the cause of some of their pain.
Yeah, that's right. They come in to get relief, and there they are, sort of like going out more.
From a purely commercial point of view, not a bad thing. You're just building up their repeat visits because you're actually not helping them that much. But anyway, we won't go there. That's not family values. Has that been a natural growth?
Yes, it has been a natural growth. Because I wanted to make it. If you ever ring the clinic, you'll get my spiel on while you're on hold, and it says we want to make it a one-stop shop. I think the pain that I had with our own family circumstances made me think that I wanted to have something where people could ring and trust the name and trust that we would deliver. Now, I didn't have all the skills, training to deliver in terms of aspects to do with pain management and things like that. That wasn't my training. So we got people in to do specific things. Now we've got them working in the areas, some of the employee assistance programs for the police and ambulance and so on, doing that more emergency sort of post-trauma work. We've got pain clinics, and we've got people working with just anxiety, depression, which is a big part of the clinic. And in fact, the adult section of the clinic is now bigger than the child part. And I don't think anyone in Gosford would, or in the Central Coast, would ever think that. The Reid Clinic or Dr. John's always associated with kids, and you would think 2/3, but it's really in a better balance now, and it means anyone rings in, hopefully there's somebody there that they can see within 24 hours of their need, and so we're onto it. And it's a very professional team that we've again weeded out those who were in there for the wrong reasons. Yeah. And
well, it comes back to those core values.
Yeah, it comes back to core values, but it takes someone a little bit stronger than the nice guy at the top, like myself and Warwick. We didn't want to, you know, hurt people's feelings. And if they came in and, okay, so we'd had this complaint about them, well, mate, we've got to have this complaint about you. Can you tidy that up? You know, assuming that they would. Whereas the new breed, no, accountability, show you've got the job, show you, you know, quality management, quality assurance. No, I'm sorry, we've got to let you go.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're good like that. So the quality of our staff, both professionally and clinically, is stronger than we've ever had.
So where do you think the inspiration came from for this? Was it yeah, because there's massive growth.
Massive growth. I think because I do believe the name was trusted, and because I was on media doing on the Today Show and then Sunrise and all that sort of thing, so people got to know the name. And I think a common sense approach, and because, you know, I was a parent, I had kids of my own, we'd had a child, as mentioned, who died, and all that strain and feeling through all that. So I think the growth came through people felt that there's an affinity there, that they're understood, and that we genuinely mean business, and we're talking a language that they know. I'm not quite sure, but I know Warwick had a very good name through the schools too. So, and then just attracting, which attracted some very good people. And so, yeah, I don't really know. It certainly wasn't the market. I suppose media was marketing, but I didn't see it like that. In fact, now you mentioned it, how it started. I was started the clinic and said to a friend, how do we get people to know about it? And he said, well, you'd better get on 2GO and just do a bit of talkback. So my whole media career was never planned. It was doing talkback, and then someone said, well, that talkback sounds interesting. Could you do little segments that can go? So I was on 67 stations around Australia with my little Keeping with Kids segment. And then someone said, oh, couldn't you put that into a book so we can read it? And the book led to the television and so on. It was never, again, a planned strategy. And I know it's a wrong business model altogether. It just grew.
I mean, you're too old to slap, but I will slap you again if you say it's good luck. Because you listen, Dr. John. You've made that culture work from listening to people. You know, someone could have said, we need a book, and you say, I've never written a book. I'm not going to write a book.
Yeah.
But you didn't.
Yeah.
You wrote a book. So, no, we're not going to let you get away with that, but we'll move on.
And I found actually I was better, when I did my uni work, I obviously did my psych and education, but I also did a major in English. And the reason I did a major in English was I thought I wasn't too good at it. I went to a selective school, but compared to a lot of people there, all your lawyers and magistrates and so on, I thought, gee, so I thought I'd do a major in it. And now I found I was getting top marks in there, and I found I can communicate not only orally but in written form, and a sense of humour that some said I'd rather you didn't know. So well, it's me. You're going to get it.
I may even get that accusation levelled at me.
But you can't be anything but yourself, no. And so I think that's. But it was when somebody said you better get on the 2GO to actually let people know that you're around. That actually started what has become this incredible journey, and every day I sort of think, I'm very, I don't know what you call privileged, blessed, lucky, to whatever form you'd use, but I know what I feel that to have had this opportunity and to have stayed as well long enough to be able to deliver to so many families. I get parents meeting me in the street and saying, you won't remember me, but I came to you 20 years ago. And of course I don't remember them, but it's a good technique I've found is when I see someone, I say, I know your face. And I say, oh, hi, Dr. John. I said, look, how's that problem now?
we may need to cut this out because now you've just given it away.
and then of course they say, gee, nice of you to remember. But then when they catch up and they say, you really helped us so much. I said, no, you were the client. You had the courage, you had the confidence in your family to want to get help. I might have been a catalyst in it. But you did the hard yards, and it's generally the people we see, they do the hard yards, and it's their belief that they can do things better has made them, very successful families. That they weren't ashamed to take help. And I've used that model myself, that many of the clients I see have got so many skills that I don't, and so if I need help, I'm not ashamed to get help.
You know, that's our charter here at Business Insider too. It is getting people strong enough, and now they know you and your unplanned path to business, which was really planned, but we won't go any further on that. Hopefully that helps them. It helps me with my business as well to say, okay, well, you need to say yes more often than you say no, and believe in yourself, which you have shown so many families on the coast. So that's a cool place. I'd love to hear, and I'm not sure what we'll get here, but at the very last question we say, well, if you could change something in the business structure on the Central Coast, if we could have a magic wand, what would you change right now, Dr. John?
What, about my own business or the general?
Well, it could be about your own business and then on general, or whichever way you want to approach it.
I think there's probably a couple of answers. I think in my one, obviously the share plan and joint ownership was a huge one that I would never encourage anyone to go into unless they've got a very different model to the one we had. That doesn't mean lack of involvement or incentive or whatever, but you know, I would never do that again. And in terms of as a collective, I would think, perhaps as you're suggesting, Mark, that I would think that we need to be a little bit more open and accepting, and in my case, because I felt administratively inferior, because I didn't know how to run a business, I never networked or I never did anything like that. And I would like to think that, I know others are far ahead of me on this regard, but that there would be an openness and to actually plan collectively and to look at what our collective needs are and be a little bit less self-centered in the way we manage our business and be very proud of what we're doing, but also, like we do in our own clinic, where is the member of the community? What are they looking for? Just like I'd like to think of as a family. So the community is a collection of families. What is it that they want, and how well are we delivering that? And I don't know that I certainly haven't participated in that exercise. I'm sure others have, and but I do believe that united voice of strength and concern and forward thinking about what are the needs of the community, because I think we've, in many ways, you know, I feel disappointed sometimes in council in the past and the way they've approached planning. For instance, you know, just the planning of your real estate developments. You know, you can finely tune, you can affect the whole way a community interacts by virtue of your planning. It's not just psychology's, you know, an answer for that.
Yeah, is it about, well, it's about the physical structure of the planning process.
Yes, and the social planning.
And the social planning. I think if we talk about business now on the Central Coast, they as one would suggest that, you know, we haven't looked far enough ahead in terms of what we develop and how we grow this city of Gosford or the whole Central Coast.
Yeah, I think we certainly haven't done that, but I don't think we've asked what are those individual unit families who are getting more and more distance from each other as the more complex we go. How are we helping them to feel not just physically safe, but secure and loved and belonging and all that? How do we plan our structures, our buildings, our streets, our zoning, so that they feel, other communities have done it, so they feel, I feel good here, I'm finding it easy to catch up with so-and-so, easy access to such and such. But I don't think we've engaged, and a lot of communities haven't, but I would like to think, gee, surely we'll only some of the messages from Sydney on the Central Coast to say, look at the things they're doing wrong, the way they've done their complex high-rise and everything else, where the person in the next apartment, you don't even know whether they're still alive. Yeah. You know, what are we doing in our planning that says we need to make people look after their psychological needs to belong, to be part of, to be a tribe, and to feel supported
and recognised.
And recognised. When I don't know if we're doing it. Maybe I haven't been actively enough engaged in the process. But there's a lot more we could be doing that would make families a lot healthier. You see, a lot of the problems we're getting in society with wayward youth and so on a lot of that is to do with the isolation of individual families within there, and they feel absolutely powerless. If we had time, I'd tell you how powerless they feel. We get, for instance, there's been a party at such and such, up at Watanabe, and these youths have just destroyed something. So you ring the parent and just say, yes, and instead of, well, you should be supervising your kids, you ring them and they say, well, please help. Yeah. I don't know what to do. He won't listen to me. And so each little family is struggling on their own without a collective voice or without that strength. Now, no kid, no teenager can beat a confident tribe.
Yeah.
But the tribe, the elders, the tribe isn't talking.
We don't have confident tribes now.
No, we don't. There is no set values or no coordinated voice.
We may need to come back to this because it's such a big topic.
Sorry.
No, do not apologise. Do not ever apologise. Yeah. No, it's a great area, and
yeah, maybe we can another time.
We might do that another time. Thank you so much for your time, and it is an entree to another session, I'm sure.
Well, thank you very much, Mark. I've enjoyed it, and hopefully something good will come out of it.